Plot twist, your life is not over at age 30. So why do we feel like we need to have everything figured out by then? Both women and men face a lot of pressure from society and from our families, as well as comparing ourselves to our peers when it comes to the trajectory of our lives and these milestones. I turned 26 this past year. This is definitely the year that I have thought about 30 the most. It's, in my point of view, if that makes sense. It's in my peripheral, it's on my radar. In your early 20s, at least for me, and I know a lot of people, 30 just seems like so far away, it seems so old. But once you hit 25 and everything up until 30, it just becomes more and more prevalent, and you have more friends that are turning 30, more friends that are settling down, getting married, progressing in their careers, maybe moving to different cities. Life starts to feel a lot more real because a lot of people are making these really big life-defining or life-changing decisions. I think especially because of women's biological clocks, we do face a lot of pressure to settle down by a certain age. And once we do get into, our mid-20s and early 30s, you may start to face a lot of questions from your family, people you just maybe run into and need to make small talk with, like, oh, so do you have a boyfriend? Do you have a fiance? Are you married? Do you have any kids? When are you gonna have kids? And then even if you are in a relationship or married, I've heard that a lot of couples, especially people that have just been married, that they start feeling a lot of pressure to have kids right away just because their families and, everyone is asking them all the time, like, when are you gonna have kids? God bless the women's movement and feminism for allowing women to have the option to work if that's something that you want to do and, have our own bank accounts and be independent and all of that. However, now we're kind of faced with this double pressure where we want to have certain career goals accomplished, but then we still have the pressure of, either whether you want to settle down or not. I think there's still kind of that pressure from external sources. We want to succeed in our careers and live full lives. It's not like you move out, from your dad's house to now your husband's house, because they're the ones that can sign off on everything and anything. And therefore a lot of women are choosing to have children later on rather than freshly 18, 21. My grandma had 3 kids by the time she was 22, 23, and that's crazy to think about now that I'm older than that. And like, oh my God, I cannot imagine even having 1 kid at that point. That would have been so much and just would have completely changed my life in every way and my experiences. I think also because it really hasn't been that long since, the feminist movement, and obviously we have such a long ways to go, but just in terms of like women having their own credit cards and being able to sign their own leases and have their own bank accounts, it really hasn't been that long since that has occurred. And so there's still people from those older generations where that just wasn't the norm. And so I think that's something to keep in mind. If you have to go back home for the holidays maybe, and like Mima is pressuring you on why you don't have 8 children yet at the age of 25. It's like, well, they're just kind of from a different generation. Going off of that, I think also just because the average life expectancy of the average person is so much longer now than it used to be. 30 is not midlife typically. So again, it's kind of an example of that old way of thinking of like 30 is so old, like you need to be settling down. And then also just how fashion and style has changed, how technology has changed. Have you guys ever seen one of those pictures of like the Golden Girls versus J-Lo and how they're the same age? And it's like, if you actually look at like the Golden Girls, you can kind of tell they're not, like, their skin isn't like super old. It's just kind of their hair and their style that makes them appear older. Because yeah, even 50, and I'm not saying 50 is young. I think, you're a true adult at that time. I feel like growing up, we used to think of a 50-year-old as what like an 80-year-old would actually be today. I don't know if that makes sense, but there's just so much more information out there. There's so much, again, more technology, makeup techniques. It's more acceptable for women to go to the gym, lift weights. We're able to do that. And when you think about it, society is a lot more free and open than it used to be. Again, obviously there's still a long way to go, but it's not like you turn 30 or 40 or 50 and you just automatically start looking like a golden girl. Like, no disrespect to them, of course, but just aesthetically speaking. So with all of this being said, a lot of these deadlines and ages that you need to accomplish certain things by are kind of outdated, and they're really not beneficial to us. I think they really honestly just cause us to have anxiety and feel bad about our lives. I do think if you want to have kids, that is something to just realistically think about. Even with that, it's like technology has advanced so much. Like Kourtney Kardashian just had a baby and she's in her 40s. It's like, that might not be for everyone. That should be a decision you make because you really want to, and not because you feel like pressure or like, what if I regret not having kids by that age? Because that is a really big commitment. But with that being said, it's like, we do have a biological clock. I think a really great example of waiting to have kids is Rihanna. Love Rihanna. I remember in middle school, like, she's just been, like, I've seen her whole journey, you know, and it's just so cool that she was such a successful, or is such a successful musician, and then is a businesswoman, and then decided to start her family. And my whole timeline has just been photos and videos of her and A$AP Rocky at this, you know, at the Montclair event, all different angles. Like, I've seen the same moment from like 5 different angles just because I think I keep liking the pics, so they just like keep showing up. Obviously, you never know what someone else is really going through or what their relationship is actually like or anything. But just generally speaking, I think she's a great example of someone who put themselves first and did what they wanted to do as far as career goals and just living life. And then, you know, not that she's settling down by any means, but, you know, starting a family and having kids, like, I just think that's so cool. They are just so chic. Like, I hope she is so happy because she deserves it. I love Rihanna.